We're in studio talking to Uriel Ben Avraham, Luden Centeno in Jerusalem. And we're delighted to have you back on with us for the next, we've got about 15 minutes together. And I wanted to ask you if you'd share a little bit about your story of making Aliyah. Here you are a born and raised Jewish man, Jewish parentage, and are a believer in Yeshua, Jesus, as the promised Jewish Messiah. Now, most people do not realize that under the law of return, which was established for who should be given citizenship as a Jew in Israel, the requirement was kind of the standard that they used for the Nuremberg test, which was 1/8 Jewish. Mother, father, grandmother, grandfather on either side, in order for you to be considered of Jewish lineage. In order to be considered to be halakhically or rabbinically Jewish, you had to have a Jewish mother. There's only one proviso in the law, and that is if you have professed a belief in Jesus, then the government of Israel will no longer recognize you as being Jewish, and they will deny your citizenship because they feel that you have converted or left Judaism. Of course, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, Paul, Timothy, all were Jewish believers in Jesus. Paul himself, even after his Damascus Road encounter, went to the synagogue first, as was his custom, because he was still Jewish. So we have biblical history. We have record of Josephus. We have the Gospels that clearly showed that Jewish people believed in Jesus and maintained their Jewish lifestyle and their Jewish identity. Luden, you came to Israel how many years ago?
Well, the question was how I got here and how I have made it so far. It's an interesting question because I have to look back to how I got here to the nation of Israel. Back in 2002, 2003, I just sensed this pulling towards the nation of Israel. I am a ordained minister. Went to Bible school and studied in Bible school. Yet, as I look back towards a seminary, I was never taught anything about Israel. The professors that were basically teaching us theology and everything that has to do with Bible school always told us that Israel was an old book and we no longer have to look to the Torah, the Tanakh, the first 5 books, of course, Genesis through Deuteronomy, and then Deuteronomy all the way to Malachi. And in 2002, 2003, I started getting a sense of an urgency in Neshama, or my nefesh, which basically means my soul, of coming up to the nation of Israel. I never imagined me ever living in the nation of Israel. Most of my sermons or my messages were never centered on the nation of Israel. But then things just started turning inside my soul, like something was pulling me towards the nation of Israel. And this is back in 2003, late 2003, early 2004. And I was working with a good organization named USA Today, a newspaper. I was doing their marketing there. I had a good position, good pay, was getting ready to get a promotion. And then all of a sudden, I hear this voice in my neshama, my soul, you have to go to the nation of Israel. And I said, well, there's nothing that I need to go there for. I have nothing there. Yet, lo and behold, I started praying because I believe in the power of prayer. When we go into that secret place, the Bible says that he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. So I decided to go on a 40-day fast, testing to see whether it was my flesh, my spirit, or the Spirit of God talking to me. Yet during this fast, I kept hearing a voice, go to Israel. You need to go. So I said, well, then you know what? I need 3 signs. I had a mortgage, I had a lease for 6 months to Mr. Campbell. I needed where to come to Israel, and I needed to know how I was going to come to Israel. So I said, you know, Elohim, or God, if you allow Mr. Campbell to release me from this 6 months from my lease, then I know that you are the one calling it to me. Yet you need to, first of all, second of all, let me know whom is going to be my contact in Israel and where am I going to stay in Israel. And lo and behold, after the 40 days of this fast, I had a fast for 40 days, I was drinking liquids, all these things, these 3 signs came to pass. I left my job, I came to Israel, I discovered here in the nation of Israel that we, my family, my ancestors were Jews that were forced to convert to Catholicism. Mind you now, I knew that we came from Spain. My mother always told me we are descendants of Spain. My grandmother always told me that we always came from Spain. And here I come to Jerusalem. I volunteer at the army. And when I got my first leave to come to Jerusalem, I come into Jaffa Gate. It's a well-known entrance to the old city of Jaffa Gate. And for some reason or the other, the Spirit of God, hallelujah, blessed be his name, led me into a store named the Jaffa Bookstore. And I met this gentleman who was the owner, today he's my friend, of course. And he said to me, let me see if you're a descendant of the Jews forced to convert to Catholicism. I didn't know or understand the term converso or marrano or anusin. These were the Jews that were forced to convert to Catholicism during the time of King Ferdinand and
Yes.
Queen Isabella. And yet the thing that struck me the most was that there was a book that the Catholic inquisitors maintained of all the names that the Jews that were forced to convert to Catholicism. I didn't have a doubt of the name Perez, because if you look at Genesis, I believe it's Genesis 29, where Judah had 2 sons, and he named one Perez. I didn't have a doubt of that name because I knew that lineage. But when the name Centeno appeared in El Libro Verde de Aragon, and anybody can find this book, all they have to do is log into Sephardim.com, and they have thousands and thousands of Spanish names that were maintained and kept in this book. And then this is where my whole process began. I said, well, you brought me here, you have to provide a way. I went to the Prime Minister, I met at the office of the Prime Minister, I met with the biggest rabbi in Israel named at that time, Shlomo Amar. I met with the biggest rabbi named Obadiah Yosef, and I said, look, we are descendants of the Jews of Spain. What can you do? So what they did was they went on the internet and they basically started to find out who I was. Mind you now, I was a preacher, I spoke in churches, I preached many sermons, and when they discovered me, they kind of turned me aside. That's how you get to the nation of Israel under the law of return. So in turn, what I did was I started going to yeshiva, and what a yeshiva is go and study about Judaism, about the Gemara, the Talmud, and the Quran, the Tanakh, and there you get training for you to basically return as a Jew under the law of return. So I did this here in Israel, yet I had to come back to America because I had no visa. So I went back to America. I went and I sat under Dr. Richard J. Margolis up in Melbourne, Florida, and he said, I will do everything that I can to return you back as a Jew. But when you get there, there's nothing that I can do for you.
Right.
I applied to Nefesh B'Nefesh, the Jewish agency who works in coordination with the Jewish agency called Nefesh B'Nefesh. I went to Miami. I filled out all the paperwork. I tried to make Oleh Hadat, which you mentioned earlier, Aliyah. And I get an interesting call from Danny Overman, who's actually the vice president of Nefesh B'Nefesh. And he says, Luden, Uriel, you're going to have a problem because they have found you on the internet on Christian site. And I told him, look, I'm not worried about that. I know that I was in Christianity, Texas Christianity, but yet under the law of return, I have a right to come back because I did a conversion. Yet our names are registered in Spain as Jews forced to convert to Catholicism. Yet the Jewish agency denied me. So I took another step. I took my case all the way to the Israeli Supreme Court. Michael Decker, who's a prominent lawyer, who's also a believer, and Caleb Myers, who's also a prominent lawyer here in Jerusalem, took my case to the Israeli Supreme Court, challenging the Ministry of Interior. Now you have to understand that the Interior Ministry is basically headed by the Orthodox, and the Orthodox here in Israel, they want nothing to do with anyone that believes in the Messiah. Well, you know what? I am a believer in the Messiah. Judaism turned me down. I tried to come back as a Jew. I was denied. So I went to the Supreme Court, and lo and behold, I was also denied at the Supreme Court. I told my wife I will never use you for papers to be in this country. And one politician who heard my case, named Yair Lapid, contacted Gidon Sa'ar, who was a sitting minister of the Interior, not religious.
Right.
He was the one that basically issued me my papers. And I say to this, glory be to the God of Israel, because when he calls you, he will make a way in the nation of Israel.
So you're there now legally?
I have my Tudatsu, which is basically my papers.
So you're a permanent resident of Israel, married to a Sabra,
Children who bear my name.
and 2 children that bear your name. So I would say that certainly qualifies. Most people aren't aware when you talk about Spain, the real history behind Christopher Columbus and what was being done in Spain at the time that brought him to the Americas in 1492. This was a time of forced conversion for Jews that unless you converted, you would die. And he came as a Jewish believer from Italy to petition for 3 shiploads of Jews to save them from forced conversion. And so the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria were filled with Jewish people. Christopher Columbus, a Messianic Jew of great world renown, but yet the history books leave that part out, that it was for the restoration of the Jewish people. It's interesting that there's so many different aspects to Judaism, but yet there's so few of us, 14 million of us in the world, but we actually have 2 different distinct languages within our own culture. Hebrew, of course, being the unifying one, but I grew up in a home that spoke Yiddish. You lived in an environment where Ladino was a language spoken, which is a hybrid Spanish and Hebrew, and mine was a hybrid German and Hebrew. And so Israel is a melting pot of Jewish culture. It's a welcoming community. From your perspective, as you look, as we just have about a minute left with our time together, I'm bringing a group of 60 people in June. I still maintain Israel is the safest place in the world. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
All right. You're raising two young children right there in Israel. Things happen around you, things happen around here, but Israel is safe.
You know, we have to be very careful. Let me make one thing clear on these last 40 seconds that we have. I don't have a problem with Judaism and what we follow, because the Siddur is a great book, yet they have missed the mark. But we have to understand what Paul the Apostle said. You know, he's going to provoke Israel into jealousy.
Yes.
Because, you know, the nations of the world needed to understand that the Messiah had to go out to the nations via the apostles. And my children, look, I love my children. You know, I risk my life on speaking on terror day in and day out. This is my main issue. I have two children. I have many Jews that are surrounding me, and I love Israel, and I'm putting my life on the line. Anything that has to do with Islam or Daesh or ISIS, this is nothing that the world is really targeting. But we that are living here, you know, let me tell you what happened long ago. They put a fatwa on my head. I have a bounty on my head for speaking against terror. But you know what? He who keeps Israel does not slumber nor sleep.
Amen.
He has kept me this long, and he will continue to keep me and my children and the nation of Israel.
Amen. Well, may I say to you, Yivarechech Adonai v'yismecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'kunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his countenance toward you and your family and give you his peace. In the name of the Prince of Peace, Jesus our Messiah. Amen and amen. I will talk to you soon. Shalom, my friend.
Shmarecha. Le Walker. The Lord bless you and keep you, Rabbi Walker.
Toda Rabba. Okay, shalom, shalom. We'll talk soon. We're about to go to break now. Our next guest will be Paul Toberty, joining us from California. Paul is the author of a book, Nation Born in a Day. And it'll be exciting to continue this conversation as we've been through all day of talking about Israel, Israel's right to exist, Israel's biblical right to exist, that this is not just fanatical, this is not just opinion, this is biblical truth. You're listening to the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker and watching our show, Revealing the Truth, right here on the Ignatian Nation Broadcasting Network. We'll be right back.